All right, welcome learners. This is to get everybody ready for our first class in C#, ASP.NET, Web Application Development. I have sent out this PowerPoint so you can take a look at it before class. And there's a Google Doc landing page where I'm going to be putting a lot of our material. So I'll be putting it on Moodle Classroom as well, but with Moodle Classroom, things tend to get messed up, right? Like things may be hard to find. This landing page will be easier to get everything organized, so it'll be in two places. I'm going to be teaching two streams in this class because I found that I always have students who, you know, you want to get the credit, you want to get the good mark, and you want to do well in the tests, and you maybe want to go and work in a bank or something, or work in business, which is fine. I also know that I have some students who want to work in IT, programming, database, network administration, maybe come up with a great idea and make your own startup.com or something. So I'll be running an advanced stream as well, and I'll be introducing some advanced topics such as AngularJS and using C# for data analytics. And I'll be setting up a Slack workspace. I'll kick that out later this week. The advanced material is for your interest only. You will not be tested on it. You will not be given assignments, but it will give you some interesting stuff to talk about at the job interview. So I hope this will be a very fun course for everybody. And I think studying computer programming on Saturday is kind of cool, but maybe that's just me. Tools we'll be using in this course: Git and GitHub, Visual Studio 2019, which I hope you've all downloaded and gotten it installed now. We'll be learning about the NuGet Package Manager, which is analogous to NPM if you've studied Node.js yet, and PowerShell, which is our Windows terminal, and MS Microsoft SQL Server, which is a free download. You don't need that today. We'll need it starting from next week. And your web browser, do not use Internet Explorer, please. If you use Internet Explorer, I guarantee you it's not going to work. Google Chrome is fine, it's okay, it does the job, but the best one in my opinion is Mozilla Developer. And if you need links for that, let me know. So what's the goal of our course? It is to build the 3-tier application, right? So what does that mean? So here we're going to be building web applications. And there's two ways to do that, as I discussed in my previous video. We can do it via Model View Controller applications, and we can do it via Web Services APIs. And in either case, no matter how you're doing it, your requirement is to persist and store your data in a back-end database, right? So if it's Model View Controller, you're going to have the view, right? So you have the view, which is the web page. Where's my mouse? Here we go. So that's the user-facing HTML page. That's the view. And then we have the model, which is called that because it's the business model. It is where the business data and these days it can be also an API call out to another source. One of our assignments is going to be connecting to Environment Canada's Weather API service. So that's an external data store. You can store data or retrieve it. And those of you who go into mobile application development, you don't really have much room on an iPhone for a database, so you go out through the network to connect to external databases like Azure, as we'll see. And the purpose of that data store and process store, it's a process and data server. So I know a number of you, I think everybody in this class, I hope, has taken an introductory course in database. So you've learned that we can store data. We can also store business processes, and in order to build web applications to serve business needs, we have to learn how our model can store business processes. That's going to be good. And then the controller is the C# code. In the case of this class, could be Node.js, or it could be Where's my, because I can't see because of the sun. There we go. So it could be a number of languages, but in our case, C# code that implements business processes. So what's a business process? Well, I hope if you know that by now. If you're going to go on wikipedia.ca, you want to book an airplane, we break that out to use cases, and I will be teaching you a little bit, and we won't have time in this course. It'll be mostly for my advanced students who want to learn unified process and some business analytics, excuse me, not analytics, but some business analysis to support how do we write our programs, right? Because the big thing that when I was going through computer science and they didn't teach us this is they would tell us write programs to do this and that, and we'd sit looking at each other and going, like, where did all this come from? It fell out of the blue sky, right? Ad hoc, it's a Latin word meaning out of the blue sky. So I always try to take things from first principles and teach you where did things come from. So if you want to be one of my basic students, that's good. Just learn the basics really well, and I'll teach you what programs to write. And if you want to be an advanced student and work in IT, I will teach you some methodologies of how we go from business requirements to getting the code up and running. So view, model, and control are good, so that's MVC. And then the other way of doing it is web services, and we'll get to that later on, but the concept here is you have some existing legacy code. 90% of the software in the world is written in COBOL. It's been around since the 1950s. So you don't want to change that code because all the people who wrote it are dead. Don't change it. It'll break and nobody will be able to fix it. So you take the code and you wrap a mediator pattern around it, and you go to your code through a web URL, and your program takes that incoming request, and in COBOL you go out and query the program, get the answer the user wants, send it back out to your wrapper, your mediator package, your mediator pattern, and then you via HTTP send the response back to the user. If what I just said to you sounds very interesting, you are a computer programming person, you like to do it, and if you say, I'd rather go to the dentist to deal with that, that's okay too. Go and become a dentist, but just get through this course and I'll teach you the basic stuff you need to know to get through the basics of it. So web services, you have some existing legacy code, i.e. COBOL. You make a wrapper program to translate incoming web requests. COBOL or whatever's the language, and then you get the result from that program, and then you reformat the result into SOAP or WSDL, Simple Object Access Protocol, or Web Services Description Language are the languages of web services, and send it back to the requesting client. Alright, that's good. I'm excited about this. So I'm going to kick this out to you in a couple of minutes. Prerequisite skills for this course. I expect you to be able to write good object-oriented code. If you can't, we can spend a little bit of time upgrading you, but you really kind of need to come into this knowing how to write a basic program with classes and objects and communicating by methods. You need to be able to write SQL, right, because you've all had a first course on database, and as we saw up here, our MVC pattern does require the ability to use the database to persist data, and we're also going to see how that's, if you're writing anything more than a very trivially simple program, you definitely want to, you need to be able to persist your data as well as your algorithms into SQL, because think about it. To write C# code to sort a list or to find something in a list, that can be hard, right? That's not a trivial problem. But if I can get my data out to a SQL database, I can use all my cool SQL stuff, inner joins, outer joins, and and all that SQL stuff, right? I can use SQL programming to do all the hard work, and then I just suck the results back into my program and present it to the user. So that's that. You were expected to know some basic HTML stuff, including cascading style sheets, JavaScript, and jQuery. Why? Look at the title of the course, Web Application Development. And you must be able to work with PowerShell and Windows, which is our terminal. If you have a Mac, you can do this on Mac as well, but it's pretty translatable. Not much more to do in Macintosh. You must understand the file system and how to save and access files, right? If you don't know that, we're going to teach that to you quickly because we can't spend a lot of time on basics here. We need to get on with it. And let's see where we are now. So prerequisites. Today's learning topics. We're going to write a program, which I've given you a link to my GitHub, and you should copy and paste that code over to Visual Studio before the class. Make sure you understand the basics of it. It's eating breakfast. I'm going to put my cream cheese over the sun so it doesn't get bad. We're going to study what does it mean to write an algorithm and design a program. And again, if you want to go into IT, you must understand that. And if you don't want to go into IT, I'll give you the little bits that you need to remember for the tests. We're going to learn about the NuGet package manager, which is how we install new packages from nuget.org, which is the website, into our Visual Studio C# ASP.NET environment. It's very, very similar to Node.js NPM. So if you've taken Web Technologies 3, you already know that. And if you've not taken it yet, then what you're learning here will translate over to there. And we're going to learn about representational state transfer, RESTful services, by building a REST services server and client. So basically only two kinds of work we're going to do in this class. Build web applications with the model view controller pattern, build web applications with the RESTful web services pattern. So here's going to be our warm-up exercise for today. We're going to write a simple program to practice, and next week, we're going to take that program and evolve it. It's going to be a simple task manager application, so somebody can use it to log everything they're doing. Maybe you're a consultant, you bill per hour for your time, or you just want to keep track of your time and money. You can create events, stuff them into a data structure, and then next week we'll see how we replace the data structure with a SQL database, and we can add events in and report on them through a HTML page and persist them in a database, right? So that's going to be the start of what we'll build up to later. And we're going to see how we can run our programs directly from the command line, which we must do in web development. So that's Windows PowerShell terminal. That's an example of running a program directly from command line. In this class, we'll be building, yes, so that's what I already said, so that's good. That's a review of what I just said. And that's what I just said as well. Advantages of using a SQL database instead of program variables. It persists, right? If I have a program and I put in a bunch of tasks in my task manager, the program runs. Next time, the user will not have access to what they entered before, which is not good. But with a database, everything before is there, and they can pull it out and modify it and change it and all that stuff. And that's what I just said, so that's good. Oh, I guess I'm going, what am I doing? Maybe I'm going back up. So there's some references and resources. There's a textbook for this course. If you do not want to buy the textbook, there's enough online to keep you going. We're going to talk about an introduction to C# from a computer sciences point of view. And again, this is an advanced topic, so if you're one of my advanced students who wants to get a job as a developer, and if the interviewer asks you, and they do ask you in the programming interview, discuss in what ways you think C# is an imperative program. Do you know what the imperative programming style is? How does it compare to other styles, such as functional or object-oriented? And if you do want to get a job in this, you need to be able to have discussions at that level. And there's a link there to an Excel sheet that I put together for a course I was taking myself a few years ago on programming paradigms. It was a cool course. You already know Microsoft Visual Studio, I hope. It's an integrated development environment that has a really nice facility for assisting us with writing code and a visual debugger. It integrates with source code, which I don't use. I just use the command line for source code. And it has some other nice tools we'll get into. You have the servers view. Actually, let me show it to you. Hang on. So some of the big ones we'll be using here, which you may have not seen before. See, we have the Server Explorer. So as we're going to get into things like connecting to our SQL Server, we go through the server view. And Team Explorer, that's if you're using a GitHub source control type approach with other team members. Will not be doing that. And Solution Explorer is pretty cool because we'll be writing complicated programs, and the Solution Explorer easily lets you drive yourself around and find out where you are. And then in terms of NuGet, so you go to your project, you right click, and you can import, and you go to NuGet.org, that's where it goes, so you can find packages. Humanizer is one that takes sort of complicated things like milliseconds and changes them to hours or days, so it's easier for us to understand. So we'll be working with NuGet. And where does that work? Just like npm in Node.js works with npmjs.com, NuGet works with NuGet.org. And you will be submitting your assignments as NuGet packages. So one of the first things you're going to do, and if you want you can do it before class, is go to NuGet.org and click on sign up and get yourself an account. It's free, and it will be a required deliverable for this course. So do that. See, and then you could go here and import various of these packages. Import it into where? Well, import it into what I'm working in would probably be the good thing to do. And let's see what else we have lined up for you. So Visual Studio also gives you an HTTP server, because if we're going to run applications, I hope you remember from your Web Technologies 1 and 2, you need a web server and HTTP server. Well, Visual Studio gives us that built in, so that's pretty cool. And it's one of our activities today. We're going to be installing .NET. What is .NET? I'll come to the lecture, we'll talk about it. .NET is a set of libraries. It's code modules. Like if you program Python, for example, you know there's lots of Python modules for things like reading and writing from an Excel sheet. So .NET is the set of class libraries that is available to you when you want to program in C# or F# or Visual Basic or their other programming languages. And you don't need Visual Studio to do .NET programming. You could use Notepad or Sublime Text Editor. You would not get code completion, but you could do it. And you can install .NET on any Windows, Macintosh, or Linux machine. So that's that. You can also work with it from the command line, as we'll be doing. And we'll be going through a .NET tutorial to write a Hello World program. And that's more stuff we're going to be talking about. So .NET Framework is if you're doing Model View Controller. Well, actually, no, that's not a reasonable way. That's not going to be a helpful way for you to think about it. We do our web application development work using .NET Core and .NET Framework. Just think about that for right now. What is .NET? It's an open source development platform for building different types of apps. And the developer platform is the languages such as C# is our language, and the libraries such as you can get from NuGet. What is .NET? It's a set of libraries. What can you build with .NET? Pretty much everything. We're going to be focusing primarily on web applications. You could use it for mobile apps development. And I'll be touching on some of these other things as we go along, and some of my advanced students for some of your advanced topics. I'll be teaching you about how we can do machine learning and maybe even get to some Internet of Things with a Raspberry Pi towards the end of the course. ASP.NET Core is a web development framework for building web apps on the .NET platform. ASP.NET Core is the open source version of ASP.NET, and it was first released in 2016. Well, you don't really need to know that, I guess. Let's just worry about what we're learning today, I think. Let's keep it simple. And there's some distinctions between .NET Core and .NET Framework. You may have heard, those of you who are looking at job ads for IT type jobs, they say we're hiring developers who can work in Dockerized environments. So .NET Core lets you construct components that can live in containers called Docker containers. And if anybody's interested in that, let me know. I'll work some towards the end, some of the advanced assignments. And again, don't worry if you don't want to do the advanced stuff. There'll always be two streams. There will be the simple stream and there will be the advanced stream. And marks wise, you will not be somehow punished if you don't do the advanced work, or you say, oh, if I do the advanced stuff and I don't do it well, then I'm going to get a lower mark. No, the marks will be normalized out. Just worry about learning the most amount of stuff you can. You'll be fine. And I'll leave you to read through that and that. And that's one thing we're going to do in class, but if you want to do it before class, that would be good. And we're going to do exercises with NuGet, and there's some references to go and read more stuff. All right, see you in class. Try to log on 5 minutes early, because we'll be starting exactly at the starting time. Double check your schedule, make sure your laptop is set up, and everything is ready to go. Any questions, send me an email. See you later. Have a nice day. See you in a couple of hours.